Welcome to the Rich Carroll program. I'm your host, Rich Carroll. By now, you guys have heard about the shooting in Sutherland Springs, Texas, where a shooter entered a church and killed 26 innocent people. He was eventually stopped by a man who had a rifle, a man named Stephen Walford. The shooter was forced to flee after this confrontation. He was then pursued by Walford and another man named Johnny Langendorf. The shooter ended up suffering 2 gunshot wounds from Walford before killing himself after the car chase. After this was finished, public figures and legislators came out in support of more gun control in an effort to bring an end to mass shootings that keep popping up in the news. But Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, he had a different message. A message I think that you should hear. He told the Fox News Insider, he said, quote, "I wish some law would fix all of this. All I can say is in Texas, at least we have the opportunity to have concealed carry. And so there's always the opportunity. That gunman will be taken out before he has the opportunity to kill very many people. You can't necessarily keep guns out of the hands of people who are going to violate the law. If someone is willing to kill someone, they're also going to be willing to violate a gun law." Undoubtedly, this statement will be met with resistance from gun control supporters. But let's look at what happened at another church shooting in Tennessee. A shooter, he ended up killing a woman outside, and he proceeded to go into the church and open fire on the congregants. An usher who was at the church eventually was able to slip out and grab a gun from his car and held the shooter at gunpoint until the police showed up. Another story of a good guy with a gun. The more law-abiding, responsible people who carry, the less likely a madman will be able to inflict great damage on a populace. And Paxton, he isn't the only one who believes like this. I found a piece in the Washington Examiner titled "Gun Buying Surge as Americans Seek to Defend Selves." That piece reported this. It said the FBI reports that October had the second highest number of gun purchase background checks ever, putting 2017 on a pace to be the second highest sales year in history. At the same time, counties around the country are reporting record-setting applications for concealed carry permits, especially among women and minorities. So far this year, over 20 million of those background checks have been applied for. My guess is that number comes in behind the greatest gun salesman in U.S. history, Barack Obama. You see, people are tired of being pushed around by psychos who get their hands on guns or psychos who drive their truck into crowds of people. Guns empower good people who would otherwise be defenseless. It puts you on a level playing field with a criminal. To the point that the Washington Examiner article made, the Chicago Tribune says the number of black women in Chicago getting concealed carry permits has risen every year since 2014. That makes plenty of sense coming from Chicago. Chicago PD in 2016 counted homicides at 754 and total shootings at 4,338 victims in Chicago. So, if I could make a suggestion on how we deal with gun violence in America, one way would be to do what Attorney General Ken Paxton is saying. Go buy yourself a gun. And if your state requires a permit to carry, then go get a permit. You can also tell your state legislators to pass constitutional carry, which requires no license to carry a handgun. Another thing we can do to allow people to defend themselves is pass a national concealed carry reciprocity bill. That would essentially make your gun license like your driver's license. If you have one from Texas or Oklahoma, it's recognized in California, Illinois, and New York. So Republicans have been elected into a congressional majority and into the White House by voters, many who are Second Amendment advocates. So ask yourself, why isn't pro-gun legislation being voted on? Currently, there are two bills, one in the House, one in the Senate, H.R. 38 and S. 446, the Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act. Both are sitting in their respective committees. H.R. 38 has 212 co-sponsors, co-sponsors being congressmen who want the bill to be voted on. And even though it has 212 co-sponsors, it still hasn't come up for a vote. What is Paul Ryan waiting on? That legislation is stalled in the House Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, Homeland Security, and Investigations. And that subcommittee is chaired by Congressman Jim Sensenbrenner of Wisconsin. So I'm going to give out Paul Ryan's number to his office, and I'm going to give out Representative Sensenbrenner's D.C. office number as well. Call him and tell him we want to see H.R. 38 passed. Speaker Ryan's number is 202-225-0600. You'll get an automated message, and just press 6 and it'll take you to the recording. Representative Sensenbrenner's office number is 202-225-5101. In the Senate, John Cornyn of Texas. This guy is one of the most powerful Republicans in the Senate. He is the majority whip. That's the guy who he secures votes for certain pieces of legislation. Cornyn is the sponsor of S446, the Senate version of national reciprocity. How can this guy who has so much power in the Senate, how has his bill not come up for a vote yet? That bill is sitting in the Senate Judiciary Committee, chaired by Chuck Grassley. So here are their numbers, and you can contact them as well. Senator Grassley's number is 202-224-3744. John Cornyn's number is 202-224-2934. If you missed any of those numbers, I'll be sharing it in the sources section, so you guys can look it up and share it. Also, I encourage you to contact your other legislators, your two senators, and your congressmen, and tell them to support that legislation as well and get it up for a vote. Okay. It's up to everyday Americans to look out for our neighbors because, quite frankly, the police, they can't be everywhere at once. And the framers of the Constitution, they understood this, and they knew it. They knew the right to self-defense was a right that came from God. And it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. It doesn't matter if you're black, if you're white, gay, straight, Christian, Muslim. You have the right to bear arms, and you have the right to self-defense. The shooter in Sutherland Springs was shot by Stephen Walford. He was stopped by a good guy with a gun. And quite frankly, we need many more citizens just like Stephen. I encourage you to be one of those citizens. Get active and empower yourself. And in the midst of this tragedy, only God knows why this stuff happens, and only He can bring peace and comfort to those who have been affected by this tragedy. So I ask that you guys would keep everyone affected in your prayers. And I'm Rich Carroll. Thanks for joining me. God bless.